Welcome to Beyond the Signboard, where you get the opportunity to learn all there is to know about your real estate journey from professionals who are passionate about property. I'm Amy Bennett, your host, and I look forward to providing you with education, inspiration, and a behind-the-scenes look at the world of real estate. Well, good morning, Mr. Marcus Muir, the man, the myth, the legend.
Good morning, Amy. An absolute pleasure to be here.
It is so exciting. When I was looking at who I could invite for the first series of this podcast, your name came straight to mind. We know each other in a professional capacity. You are our number one auctioneer for all of the McGrath Network, Australia-wide.
That's right. It's a pleasure to get the phone call, and like I said, it's been a wild ride watching your career.
Yeah.
You know, when I used to walk in here as the auctioneer, as receptionist.
Yes.
And now you and I are working together on the floor, selling property under the hammer.
Yeah, so it's amazing. We love an auction campaign together.
We do.
We will talk all things auction, but there's so much more to your world, personally and professionally, aside from auction. Love you to share your career journey. I know both of us grew up here on the coast. We, bleed the Sunshine Coast. We love this region. We're very passionate about the growth of the area, and obviously highlighting to prospective buyers the benefits of the area.
Correct. No, it's a region that we're very passionate about. We love, right? The Sunshine Coast just goes from strength to strength, and not just on that side of things. What a beautiful place to raise a family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you walk along the beach with your kids in the morning. You drop them at school. Everywhere you go and everything you do is a pleasure. Nothing's hard. It's
amazing. So you have the beautiful Eve and Lulu, who we'll learn a little bit more about as we go.
Beautiful at times.
Yes. So graduating from Sunshine Coast Grammar School here, I'd guess a few years ago now.
Yeah, a few years ago now. And I guess that segues into born and raised Melbourne, came to the Sunshine Coast, obviously schooled here. And that's where I guess it segues into my property journey.
Yes.
So I was at Sunshine Coast Grammar. I then went to boarding school at Nudgee.
Yes.
Which was a fantastic opportunity. Played rugby down there. It was fantastic. But also that's how I got involved in a school-based traineeship.
Okay.
And the grades weren't going in the way that anyone hoped. No surprise there.
Doing well on the footy field?
Correct. That was about it. And the guidance counsellor said to me, Marcus, where are we going to go from here? And there was a guy at school called Jake, and I remember his dad was a real estate agent. Every time I'd see him picking Jake up, he'd be on the phone, well-dressed, smooth operator.
Yeah.
And I said, what does Jake's dad do?
Yeah.
And he goes, he's actually a real estate agent. And I said, how do I get a piece of that? So, again, I just got to thank the school so much. They said, well, we'll organise you to go out a day a week with a real estate agency. And at that stage, it was Coronis back in the day, right?
Yeah.
They had 2 offices.
Okay.
That was it.
Yeah.
So I think they've got hundreds, right?
Huge growth, yeah.
So I got a school-based traineeship one day a week, and I absolutely fell in love with the industry.
It's amazing.
In every way, shape and form.
Sure.
And even though my role was to ensure that I could make the best instant coffee, all the paper was fill in the cartridges, any job that anyone didn't want to do, I was there to do on Mondays.
Best start, hey?
Right.
That's both of us started in that way within the industry, learning from the best.
Correct. And again, why I was so passionate about the way you started,
yes.
right? Because it was the same. So every Monday I would catch the bus in to the city, meet Andrew and start work. And like I said, I was just so grateful that I got a very good view of the industry. And that just led me to what I wanted to do. I did that all through grade 11 and 12 and then graduated and got straight into real estate.
So how did you find that as, I guess, going back a few years, not to say that you're that old, we're about the same age, but what was the perception of you being a young male in the industry at that time?
Yeah, it was definitely challenging in the sense that I think obviously a lot's changed in the world, right? Not just
absolutely.
in the sense of property, but it was still very much the old school. It
Yeah.
was all runs on boards, right?
Yeah.
And no one wanted to deal with anyone unless they were literally 45 plus.
Yeah, that's right. So experience was something that was paramount.
Paramount.
Yeah.
And again, where I was lucky genetically is I look very old.
You do not.
So everyone thought I was older than I actually was.
Classic.
So that was one stage of my life where I was grateful that I was old, right?
Wise beyond your years.
Correct. So, but again, fortunate enough to work around people that would take me along.
Yeah, sure.
Effectively, that then the opportunity was, Marcus is here. He's going to do a great job. He's with us. He's going to be an asset to the sale of your home.
Yeah, amazing.
Right? So I was lucky I had those people.
And hard work is certainly something you've never shied away from. Like,
No.
I know that heart and soul with who you are, that
Totally.
that you do what you say you're going to do, but also that you are passionate about everything you do.
And you've got to be. Like, if you're not passionate about this industry, and it's just not going to last.
That's right.
And again, I was very fortunate, as we and I were discussing before. I worked through the GFC.
Yeah.
Right. And that was as much as it was a painful way to start in the industry. The cycles that you got to work through really opened your eyes, and more importantly, appreciate the good times.
Totally. Look, let's delve into that, because you certainly opened to my eyes to some scenarios. Now, my stepfather growing up, so in the 90s, he was a real estate agent, like genuine commission only. So it was a long time between paychecks, that's for sure. And, I know his car was always nice. He had had people that he'd take around to properties. But, yeah, bloody tough times. You just mentioned then about, it was, 5 months, between deals.
Listen, it was a time, like I said, that we would go and sometimes I see agents at the moment who will say something to me like, "Oh, it's taken me 4 weeks of open homes to get it away, and it's been kind of dragging on." And like, not that long ago, like it would have been 2008, 2007, 2008, 2009. We were going into listing presentations, bringing our listing form as we do, and we would also then be bringing in the renewal.
Yeah,
in the sense. So you obviously explain that, but so we knew, and even the vendor knew, that us selling this property within 90 days was almost not going to happen.
Correct. So you pre-frame that. So in Queensland, we have an appointment, a Form 6, which is an appointment of an agent, and that is for 90 days. So after the 90 days, there's an ability to re-sign for an additional exclusive period. So what Marcus is saying is that ultimately there was no guarantee that in 90 days a deal would be done, which seems almost unfathomable nowadays. And
selling a house these days is, as well, like a lot of agents sell a home now, as soon as the contract's signed, they put it on the board. Obviously, acquiring finance during those times was exceptionally difficult. So you would...
Until the dollars were in the bank, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And again, it shows my age. You would literally, as soon as you'd hear that fax machine starting up, and your deal was due to go unconditional, you'd hear the turbines turning.
That's classic.
You would just hope that the letterhead was approved. Right?
Far out. I love that. That's so funny.
Otherwise, there was no petrol for the car. So, but it was a challenging time, and not just in the capacity of selling homes, but managing vendors' emotions.
Yeah, and look, we always say this, it's such a heightened time. I can't even think of a client that's having, the time of their life during a sales campaign. Like, it's
Correct.
just impossible. I can't imagine back then, and, to really think about in the GFC what your clients were going through.
Well, you've got to remember, no one selling in the GFC, this was the problem, right?
Correct.
Was selling because they wanted to sell.
That's right.
Because it was no secret that the market was terrible, right? So anyone that was selling their home had to sell it, right? But then they were governed by what they owed on it.
Correct.
So you wouldn't say to them, "What would you like?" They would say, "We need X to pay the bank out." So it was a really challenging time, and you walk in and you could relate to family with kids and things like that. So it was a tough time, but it really prepared me for now.
Absolutely.
So then you look at the deals where you perceive them to be hard at the moment, and they're a walk in the park, to be frank.
It's incredible, and to have people of your experience, I've had Grant Smith on from Century 21, who's 25-year veteran here on the coast.
Fantastic.
And he says the same about that time. He actually bought the business the day before his 21st birthday, and hit GFC was sort of year one. So
baptism of fire. It was a wild ride, and for the agents that were able to hang in there,
yes.
right? And that was the critical part, that ride through the cycle. I take my hat off to them, because it was a challenging time.
What do you think it was within them that kept them going, or that they're still there now?
I think it was just the ability that they saw everyone knew that it was going to end. There
Sure.
was a light at the end of the very long tunnel, and I guess no one perceived that things on the coast were going to be slow for so long, right? But again, if you look at the operators that traded through that, like your Grant Smiths and Jodie Headley Ward and the key operators on the Sunshine Coast, that's why they've got such good businesses.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's
they've
exactly
become
right.
so resilient.
Resilient
right?
is absolutely the word, isn't it? And adaptability as well.
And then you look at it, if we pass in an auction or if we have a deal fall over, Jodie, you just look at her personality, that's okay, we'll get to sell it.
That's
Like,
right. You're just there, back up,
it's
ready.
not like the world's coming to an end. So,
Yeah.
But listen, that was the key, I guess. Like I said, I'm very grateful to go through those times because you are then so grateful of these markets, right?
So you're back. So GFC, you're back on the coast.
Back on the coast,
Yep.
I was working for Amber Worsham.
Yeah, amazing.
Who's a great operator. I take my hat off to her.
Absolutely.
She was, I guess, a Jodie to you.
Yes.
Right? Like,
Yeah,
I learned
perfect.
a lot about the industry.
Yeah.
She really took me under her wing. Again, same thing. I was young.
Yes.
And there was a lot of resilience to let me in the door, and she would kick the door down.
Yeah,
you know?
amazing.
So she was great. Like
A real
that.
pioneer.
Totally.
We have so many on the coast, which is so amazing. It's
So many. And, and you know, like any time I was stuck with dialogue or any of that, she was always there to help. So
amazing.
And we've still got a great relationship.
And running just an absolutely incredible business on the coast.
Juggernaut.
Yep.
Juggernaut. So
Yeah,
it deserves
amazing.
everything she's got because through that GFC period, you know, I remember I sold a house one day. The gentleman who was the seller was a security guard at Fridays.
Yeah,
for
we
those
know
who
it.
don't know. You know, and I went and got the contract signed off at midnight
Yeah.
while he was at work.
Yeah.
And then I text her at midnight saying, deal done. She rung me.
Amazing.
She was awake on the computer. So
Yeah.
this is the thing about real estate, right? Everyone perceives what the industry's like on the front, but
Correct.
behind, it's
Yep.
an emotional roller coaster.
Look, you know, there's no accident. This podcast series is called Beyond the Signboard.
Totally.
You know, I know we're going to delve into that a little bit deeper. Funny you say about Fridays. We're just talking about just recently about, you know, those days where we'd sort of party, you know, pre-social media. And actually I was talking with Grant about getting photos developed from those wild nights. Many a fun time. Look, the Sunshine Coast is just an amazing place to grow up. So fast forward to now in 2024, and where does that find you?
Yeah, so when I finished, I guess, going through the residential real estate sales, I was lucky enough to be working for a few clients that got heavily involved in off the plan.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where my business really went out of the generic mum and dad real estate,
Yep.
houses selling, to off the plan.
Yeah.
And I found a passion for it, a love for it, more so I guess, learning a new skill set.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Always evolving.
the detail. And, you know, if you ever are not learning in any capacity, it's where you lose interest, right?
Correct.
And I just fell in love with the fact that we could sell something that wasn't built.
Yes.
But it was a matter of making sure I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I got into off the plan with it was my first role with ARIA, who were a key developer on the Sunshine Coast. Again, really, really rich story in the sense of it's done a lot for the Sunshine Coast, right?
Yeah.
You know, so started there and then it just went from there. So delivering projects on the Sunshine Coast, and then I've always had that connection to auctions as well.
Yeah, and look, what I love about Off the Plan is that you've always been able to envisage what's ahead, and I think a lot of people can't. So it's really sharing the story, isn't it? Building that experience, but also having demonstrated runs on the board to showcase that has occurred and what's possible. But also, I guess, selling the sizzle of people having something that's brand new, cutting edge. I've seen so many projects that you've worked on, and you're always pushing and innovating.
Correct. And listen, you've got to believe in the product.
Of course.
Right? So when you're looking to take on a new project for a developer, you've just got to make sure that it's a product that you're going to walk them through in 18 months.
Yeah.
And not only is it what you've promised, but you honestly believe that the product is the best outcome for
amazing.
them
Yeah,
and
of
the
course.
location, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, I've been so lucky to be involved in so many marquee projects on the Sunshine Coast that it might sound corny, but I drive past, and even though I'm such a small cog in the wheel of the sale, I can say to my kids, you know, I sold that. That was a
it's
block
amazing.
of land.
Yeah.
And then I've got a relationship with 36 owners in there
Yeah.
that I've built a relationship with over 18 months. So I love that, connecting with them and delivering them a product and then walking them through at the end.
I can't imagine that there's a better feeling than handing the keys over. Are you sort of at that stage with the purchases? You're sort of able to be there?
I'm from A to Z.
Yeah, amazing.
So we go all the way.
Yeah.
And I guess that stems back to when we talk about that GFC and riding that roller coaster.
Yes.
There's a lot of emotions. So they're obviously selling their home to then transition into the unit in most cases, some holiday apartments. So it's a big step for people.
Of course.
And you've got to obviously guide them through that. And it's probably, I'm just going to take a guess here, I'm probably 800-900 units now. So
yeah, it's amazing.
It's a lot of stock.
And you know what, knowing you as well as I do, every one of those people would hold a special place in your heart. You're a natural nurturer, and I know when we've worked together, in some, difficult circumstances, you're just so warm-hearted. And we'll chat through your auction, process and journey. But, what stands out for me always is how kind you are to my clients. It's just the most beautiful complimentary service for what we offer.
Yeah. And listen, it's just, as I say to everyone, if you just be yourself, business comes, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is something that you and I share alike. My biggest success is repeat business.
Absolutely.
So, everyone's got a different skill set of what they're good at. Mine would just be repeat business.
Absolutely.
So I'll get a phone call saying, Marcus, Peter's looking to move to a unit. What have you got?
Yeah.
Right? So, and there's no questions asked.
And same with developers as well. That would be the same. They would know that you are there, A to Z.
Totally.
You do what you say you're going to do.
And that's the thing. The developers that I have then developed for, and in a non-arrogant way, I've not applied for the role.
Yeah.
Right? So they have called me and say, you've delivered this in this capacity. Can you come and help us out? So like I said, it's been a great journey in the sense of dealing with these owners and working with them. And it's a beautiful process.
So good. So you're off the plan. We're going to sort of chat through what does a day in the life look like for Marcus Muir?
The day in the life of Marcus Muir. Wow. Well, listen, off the plan, I guess the tricky part is you've got a number of projects at all different stages.
Sure.
Right? We could be standing on a block of land with grass coming up to my kneecaps, and I'm telling people that they'll have beautiful views and they'll enjoy their lounge room, and we're staring at a plan. So there'll be those conversations of really planting a
hard hat on.
Hard hat on, vest on, and asking them to basically entrust in me for the next 2 years that we are going to deliver.
Sure.
And not to segue off topic, but the construction industry is a very, very minefield at the moment, right?
I think it's a great segue, and I think, honestly, I would imagine that every listener and viewer is chomping at the bit to ask that, and obviously, time will change, and when people are listening to this, things may have varied, but I think it's a really fair call.
Well, the challenges in the build industry are rife,
sure,
and that's just me being brutally honest. Obviously, you get people that will say, "Oh, it's okay now." It's simply not. The supply has eased, so getting the material is okay, but the sheer lack of trade, especially for the Sunshine Coast, this region is growing at a rate that no one can keep up with.
Absolutely.
Right? And
everyone finally knows what we knew a long time ago.
and it's no secret. Drive from Oceanic to Point Cartwright and look at how many houses are under construction.
Correct.
Right? And you go to Aura, you go to Harmony, then you go to your medium density projects, renderers, painters, builders. So we've obviously had and it's a very sad play. A lot of builders go bankrupt, right? So that's wiped out a majority of the players in the field. So we've got such a small pool of builders with the capacity to deliver.
Sure.
And their number one problem is trades.
Of course.
The volume of bodies.
Yes,
right?
That's right. Weather. Not going to lie, that's we had 60 plus days of rain.
And the other thing we've got on the coast, Amy, and you've got a big rental division here, it's not cheap to live here anymore.
Correct.
So a painter and a renderer and a carpenter and a tiler used to go, we'll live on the Sunshine Coast, we'll pay $400 a week. There's enough work there. Now they're going, it's going to cost us $800 to rent a 4-bedroom home, move the family. It's too expensive.
Correct, yeah.
So it's a tough time. And again, that's why, you've got to make sure you're working for brands that have a rich history within the area and region.
Correct.
They've got the ability and the relationships with builders to complete.
And that trade network is so vital, isn't it?
Oh, it's critical.
Absolutely
Critical.
Very much in always in my role, yours. My husband's a painter. I know exactly what his pipeline of work is, and gosh, he could work 7 days a week for the rest of his life.
Correct.
No problem. But ultimately, it's about so many different factors. So how do you instill that confidence in your clients?
Listen, it all basically comes from the fact that how I made the decision to be where I am.
Sure.
And like I said to you, a lot are referred business. So, I try to instill them that, guys, I wouldn't be here selling this or pushing this product if I was worried or had any hint of concern.
Perfect.
Now, I can never give guarantees, nor can any of us.
But the last few years, life's changed.
But what we can do is give a solid advice on how we do our due diligence to make these decisions.
Yeah, amazing. Demonstrated case studies and results. I mean, that ultimately is what people, put their faith in.
And track record.
Absolutely.
And that's my number one thing is I send them past the last 4 buildings.
Perfect.
And say, go have a look. Here's 3 or 4 numbers. Talk to the clients. Tell them what the communication was like. Speak to them about the finished product. Ask them what I promised them at the start to what we've delivered. And we'll just go randomly knock on one of their doors.
Yeah, amazing. I love that.
So,
and I think that's the thing, it's interesting you said about not being arrogant before, but you deserve to have confidence in your career. Like you said, there's a lot of things you've had to overcome, and it's a journey, and that's incredible. And that's the whole premise of this podcast is we don't give the opportunity to delve into that story a little bit deeper. I know we spoke off air about, success certainly looks different to the hard work behind the scenes. And,
it does.
I think that's a societal thing, isn't it? You see the little duck, skimming along the lake and all of the paddling underneath.
And in our world, and for those that are listening, I guess, and especially in this space, they could probably relate that the challenges when I started in Off the Plan, right, were sales. You would sit there and you would say, right, it's a $50 million project. We need 50% in pre-sales to get the project started. There's 50 builders that want to build it. The builder's not the issue, right?
Yeah.
So I've got to find $25 million worth of sales to get this project out of the ground. And that was, you would be absolutely peddling, right? The developer was settling on the land. He was paying interest. He'd have so much invested in renders and marketing and overheads, and you're pushing for the sales. Now that's completely backflipped.
Is that interesting?
Sales are there.
There's people ready to go.
You've got to find a builder.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So it's amazing, and that's where you've always got to be adapting in this industry.
Absolutely. I saw a quote last night, a Charles Darwin quote about that adaptability really is the only way we survive.
Agreed. And if you're not growing your skill set and learning, and again, one thing like David and Jody always says, I ask so many questions, and it's purely on the basis I always want to be learning.
Absolutely. Look, every single person, like even before you just met one of our team members and you had like a 6 degree of separation with them, like
totally
4 doors down in Melbourne, like it's if we stop and take the time to listen to each other, like you said, ask the questions, to genuinely be interested. And I think that's the magic that we have on the Sunshine Coast.
Correct.
Yeah, it's magic. Like it genuinely is. It's indescribable to have such an incredible community, and for us to represent the sale of it ultimately in whatever capacity. Let's chat about auctions.
Auctions, love them.
Auction superstar.
It all started many moons ago. I obviously when I was an agent, I would auction property.
Ever auction your own sale?
No.
Okay.
But I've auctioned a lot of my own houses, but not in the auctioning. I get too emotional. I've brought 3 at auction. I've sold 4 at auction. So I believe in process, right? So I was an agent, and I just remember every time watching Jason Andrews, who's now obviously the CEO and chief auctioneer of McGrath. Ray White. I would see him call these auctions and just be bewildered by the flow and the dialogue and the crisp finish and negotiation and
theatre, isn't it?
Theatre, you're right. That's the great word. And you love everything about the process, and not just the showmanship of what he did, even though he was phenomenal.
Yes.
I would also obviously have the luxury of dealing with him behind the scenes and listening to the benefits of the process for the seller, right? And if you genuinely understand the process and that it's the best thing to maximise the return and educate your client on exactly what market value is and all of those things, you start to form a true passion and connection. And I just loved it. So I trained with him and the likes of Gordon McDonald, who's a really good friend of mine as well.
Yeah, we love Gordon.
And I've just loved it ever since.
All right, so I just want to go deep on auctions because, gosh, it's just something that, like, it's a love it or hate it, isn't it? Like, buyers love it or hate it, sellers love it or hate it. But, like, that's what the podcast is about, like, let's get in and really talk about it. Like, why are people afraid? We talk about in-rooms in the property. I think let's just tackle the big one. Like, why do you always hear objections from sellers? Like, I know what I hear, but love from your perspective.
So listen, there's no better way to give yourself goosebumps, especially as an agent. Like the amount of auctioneer, I'm okay, but I remember being an agent on auction day. It was like running onto a football field. Yeah, the butterflies, like you said, there's one way to keep you up at night. Yeah, and that's going to auction.
Yeah, absolutely.
But once you sell that property under the hammer, there's no other way to replicate that feeling.
Correct.
Right? Like you and I celebrated with a couple in Maroochydore.
Yes.
That was the most spectacular day
We had
ever,
the best afternoon, didn't we? Beautiful family, really magic story, really longevity in the property, and it was a pivotal moment.
But let's talk about why we auctioned that, right? Because, and you want to go deep on that.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So we auctioned that purely on the fact that was a very hard house to price.
Yeah, absolutely.
It needed work. It was in a great location. There was value proposition there for a renovator build to a knockdown to someone who just wanted to tart the kitchen up. So it was a vast array of buyers that could appeal to.
Yeah.
So we were sitting there going, what's it worth? And that's where I guess we've got to take a step back and go, well, who are we to put a number on it?
Great point.
Like
absolutely.
We think we know it and we can go off comparable sales and they're all well and good, but when something's unique in that model, I feel, how do we arrive at a number that knowing then that people are just going to obviously negotiate down? People don't negotiate up, right?
Correct.
So
great point.
We took the price away and then we were able to literally deliver accurate feedback to our seller.
Absolutely.
We exhausted the market, 4-week campaign.
I think we had everybody from Maroochydore and the Sunshine Coast, not only throughout the campaign, but also at the auction. It was a very full backyard, wasn't it?
It was. And listen, we did an auction 3 weeks ago. The vendors, this was another auction we've done. Again, the vendors were happy to list the property at $950.
Sure.
Right? That was their magic number. And the agent convinced them to take the price away, purely on the fact she said, listen, there's really no stock on the market. I think it'd be great not to cap ourselves. Right?
And I think we probably just explained in Queensland that we aren't able to put a price guide with auction. So,
correct. So very different to our counterparts other states where we can't give a range, we can't talk price. We can give comparable sales, but that's as far as we can go.
So what we've done in that case is price is out of the equation, but time is on the table. So we have a dedicated timeline that people need to adhere to.
So for example, that family would have been happy, $950 sell, which it would have sold first weekend, right? Everyone would have been happy. We ran the 4-week campaign. We sold over 1.1.
Sure.
Right?
Big difference. 150,000. That's life-changing.
Exactly my words.
Yeah.
Life-changing. Right?
Absolutely.
So we look at that and we say, those numbers that we achieve, right, that changes someone's life. And all we have to do as an agent is what? Be patient.
Correct. That's right.
That's
exactly.
It. Just got to be patient and trust the process.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's not about you. And I think that's, this is about your clients. It's about getting them the best result.
And I always tell the agents and tell the sellers, the worst thing that can happen is we pass it in.
Let's talk about that. Like that's the fear, isn't it?
And that's the fear. And everyone has a fear of rejection in every
totally,
capacity of their life, right? From finding a date to everything, right?
Absolutely.
Someone hanging up on you and
we've had a few of those, haven't we?
We have. And you know what? I say to people that there's obviously big things that happen in everyone's lives, as we were talking about earlier, that are quite important and sad and all the rest of it. So if the worst thing that happens to you is I go, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to pass today's property in. We will have a price on it very shortly. Come and speak to Amy Bennett. That's the worst outcome that can happen.
Absolutely.
is it not worth taking the risk?
Absolutely. I love that. So important. And I think, ultimately, so this is why we want to do this education piece, because ultimately, rather than having that, it's really, I find like that a lot of that's barbecue chatter, isn't it? That's like, oh, such and such, they went to auction and there was 100 people in the front yard and, it didn't happen. Now, we always say with you, Marcus, it doesn't matter if, the property is passed in, like it is a very important process and part of the sale.
Yeah, and it's funny, a lot of the barbecue chat does happen, right? Like, it didn't sell. But what they don't do is then say next week, I'd end up selling.
Yes.
So they don't know the backstory and nor do they say the house has been listed for $2 million, it's been on the market for 365 days.
Correct. We always we've said that, haven't we? Like that's the story we tell, isn't it? There's no B-reels.
And the other reason I love auction, especially in this market, is it fast tracks our process in the sense that we can sell prior to auction.
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
Like Jodie Headley-Ward in your office is like the queen of sell prior, right? Like,
not necessarily by choice, is it? But that's what market we're in,
she
especially.
Finds the buyer.
Absolutely.
She, I think the one we've just sold prior in Shelley Beach, she found the buyer in 3 weeks and she shut it down.
Straight away.
And she said, listen, that's the number. We're happy. Let's sell it. So you've got the ability to control the narrative,
absolutely,
right? As opposed to just having the price.
Absolutely. And I think also that allows people that do have conditions. Like let's chat through. So we use a bit of your spiel in auction dialogue. So with regards to somebody putting in an offer, bidding, so what does that look like? And this is Queensland obviously based.
And this is where I feel that, again, it's such a strong advantage for our vendor, which is our seller. So anyone that registers in the state of Queensland is cash unconditional. So that means no building and pest, no finance, no cooling off period. So what they do bid is what they pay. So
sold sticker up that day.
Correct. If they get carried away and they ring you in the morning and say, hey, Amy, I got a bit trigger happy with the paddle yesterday.
Too bad.
Any chance you could put it back to the market? No, period.
That's right.
So again, your seller can wake up, go for a coffee in the morning, know the house is sold.
It's sold.
Then that gives them the ability to move on with their life and either buy the next property and go, hey, I've got a cash contract on my property.
Absolutely. So, really advantageous, isn't it, for them to have that?
Totally. So we, I just see so many strengths and this is something that I wouldn't do and wouldn't endorse if I didn't see a benefit of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
You just said you've auctioned your own properties, you've bought at auction.
Absolutely. And let's talk about the last property I brought.
Yes.
Did I get on the drive there with my wife, we discussed a number.
Yeah.
Did I far out blow that number? Yes. I spent way too much money, right?
You didn't put your hands down.
Now, would the agent have got that out of me by privately negotiating? No.
So what's that? What is that feeling like? Why did you push? Is it the competition? Is it the feeling? Were you at the property when you bid?
Yeah, we were there. We were live. And
how many other bidders?
There was 4.
All face to face.
All face to face. Oh, I think all face to face. My wife was
couldn't lose, could you?
Clutching well. At one stage there, it was it was heated, and you start thinking of everything. You start thinking, right, my kids really want it. I can see it working. It's close to their school. They're at Sunshine Coast Grammar, so it's close to the schools. We really want it. It's exciting. Every adrenaline-based emotion that you want for someone who's buying at auction, I felt.
Yeah, there you go.
And I have to admit then, I was bidding hard and fast, and I brought it. And did I have a bit of buyer remorse? Yeah, absolutely. So, but it was good for me to go through the process.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Competition was hot.
Yep. You could see them, and I think that's something.
It was transparent.
Exactly. That's exactly right. There is no, and I think that we don't even need to talk about the perception of our industry, but certainly, I sometimes get pushback in a multiple offer where people genuinely believe there's no one else there.
How many times have we said, have you heard, there is someone else, and then the buyer says, but is there really?
That's exactly right.
You can't blame a buyer for asking the question,
of course.
Although we are regulated to sign multiple offer forms.
Correct.
However, seeing that the real in the front yard,
with their
other
kids.
buyers with their kids, so it was very competitive. I'm a competitive person. I do like to win.
Yes.
So watching that all unfold was a great experience, and that vendor was able to move on.
Yeah.
I was happy. So
Yeah.
everyone's a winner, you know?
Absolutely. And I think that's what our role is, isn't it? It's to bring two parties together.
Correct.
To both feel that they've had a win, and they rightfully deserve that as well. You know, ultimately that's longevity in business. That's how business is done on the Sunshine Coast. I'm really interested with the auction process. You know, John McGrath, he recounts his story, and I think of it so often, which was, a mum, and it's one of the only, major complaints that John had was that, the mum's kids had gone to school, they'd, taken the ad or the brochure of the property and said, this is where we're going to live. And unfortunately, they were outbid at auction. And John's heart and soul in sharing that story. But it does get down to it. That's bloody hard, isn't it? To get in the car and the girls, you're like, oh, no, that's not.
It's tough. Well, we I missed out on 2 or 3 auctions and I was more scared of getting back in the car with my wife. I used to stay at the auction as long as I could afterwards, saying to the agent, have you rung the neighbours? Is there anyone else? I've got to find something else pretty damn quickly. So, and the disappointment of missing out on auction, right, was very disappointing. So you would almost go harder at the next one.
You get stronger in your buying approach.
100%. So, but you know what? I also look at the buying capacity. Let's not just talk about that in the vendor's sense. Yes, great for closure, great to maximise the price, but I still think there's huge opportunity for a buyer to bid at auction.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So
let's chat about that.
Role reverse, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I get a lot of mates call me, and I got a mate call me last week and say, I'm going to bid on a place in Brisbane. What would you recommend? Is it best I just wait and leave it? I said, not at all. I said, register. If you're the only registered bidder there, you're controlling the process.
Absolutely.
Right? So
don't miss the opportunity.
Absolutely. Negotiate and say, I'm the only cash buyer here.
Yes.
So this is what I'm prepared to pay. We can make it happen under the hammer right now. Otherwise, I'm more than happy just to get in the car and go to the next one. So you also control a lot of the power as the buyer as well.
Yeah, great advice.
So I think that buyers who go, I don't want to bid at auction, I can't understand why.
And I think what's probably lack of information,
Correct.
isn't it? Do you think that they that's awesome? You just made me think. Have you seen some crazy stuff happen with buyers? Like, I at a charity auction, I stupidly put my hand up to get a drink from the waiter, and I bid $6,000 at a charity auction on God knows what. I still don't know.
Right.
Thank gosh someone else put their hand up.
Thank God.
But I have to put my hands under my legs because
listen, there's some we've had some doozies and probably just thinking now I think it was one in Brisbane. I off the top of my head, the reserve was 1.2, and I went over to this gentleman and he said he was really nervous, and I said to him, mate, he said, what's your advice? And I said, mate, my advice is just come out as strong as you can. Whatever you're prepared to pay. I can't obviously tell you the numbers, but I'm just the auctioneer. Just come out and bid bold and try to knock your opposition out of the water. And we had about 3 other registered bidders, and the agent said to me, reserves 1-2, feedback's been around that 150 to 250. So if we can get somewhere in that vicinity, the sellers are really, really happy. I said, fantastic. I said, if no one bids, I'll obviously start at around that 1-1 and see if we can work up. And this gentleman was pacing around. I could see he was ready to pounce, and I thought, I wonder if he's going to sit back and not do anything, or he's going to take my advice. It's always a 50-50.
I love that.
Anyway, so I've done the preamble, and he's pacing. I said, well, ladies and gentlemen, opening bid to get us underway. And he's no word of a lie. In about 0.25 of a second, put his hand up and got 1.5 million. And the agent's looking at me. I'm looking at the and
it's live, folks. It's live.
It's live. And I said, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're on the market. We're absolutely playing for kids. Anyway, so we sold it for 1.5. And the vendors, I think, almost fallen out the window. And I've walked over to him, and he said, "Oh, thanks for the advice."
Amazing.
And but there's a million stories. Like we've got so many good stories of buyers bidding and having fun, and you've got to make the process enjoyable, right?
I tell you, I love nothing more, not that I have time spare often on a Saturday, but I love nothing more than going to an auction. The biggest thing that we, as agents all sort of chat about is the awkward stuff.
Totally, yeah. And listen, I say to everyone, people say to me, do you ever get nervous or worried about the bidding sequence? And 5 years of boarding school, I learned to count, so I was all right. So the bidding sequence difference is okay. The hardest auctions to call when you've got no registered bidders.
Yeah,
so
sure.
people think it's awkward for the agent. As the auctioneer, you're standing in a room with complete dead silence with probably 50 people with locked eyes waiting to see what you're going to say.
Yes.
And you've got to make it sound good. So that's, as an auctioneer, they're the hardest auctions to call,
Sure.
right? And you've obviously got to make sure that you're representing the property and the seller in the right way. And so they're tough, right? They are tough, awkward moments. But also I feel there's huge opportunity there too.
Absolutely.
For buyer and seller.
Look, you're on display. The audience, the people are there. Time is so precious. People are there for a reason, aren't they?
They are. They're there to buy. And, for the ones that are awkward and we may have conditional parties there. So what that means is people may need finance or they can't bid.
They're hoping it doesn't go under the hammer.
And so many times I've passed the property in and the agent's called me 45 minutes later saying we've got multiple offers at X and naught. The seller's signed that one. It's a done deal.
Sure.
So I think people have to give auction credit for the auctions that you drive away from thinking that was a flop. I would recheck the success rate post-auction.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So that 4 to 5 days post-auction
is a success.
Is a huge success.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So everyone puts a big emphasis on the day, which I think is a selfish way to look at it.
Absolutely.
We've got to let it's a big day, right?
Yes.
And we often see just after auction the property sell.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just love to ask your thought for a buyer that's, feeling all of those feels. Would you recommend that they get an advocate to, bid on their behalf? That's something I, know that you've done before
Yes.
and, certainly something that I advocate for.
Totally. Listen, I've had a few clients and I've done it for a few clients and I feel the ability to remove the emotion if that's what you're concerned about. And that is usually what people are worried about, paying too much, right? And getting caught up in the moment. So
you think that's a number one fear for the buyer?
Totally.
Is that not – so it's interesting because I wasn't sure if it was sort of public humiliation as well, like they'd do the wrong thing.
Well, I think people are I think people's biggest fear is potentially where do I start it? Or again, I don't embarrass myself.
Yeah, of course. That's what I mean.
Let's say you're there to spend $1 million on the property, right? Where do I start it?
Correct.
If I start at 800, is that too low?
Yeah, that's
people
right.
laugh?
Or disrespect the sellers.
There's a million different thoughts.
Of course.
And again, when there is pressure, you start to question everything.
Yeah.
Right? It's just human nature.
Of course.
So I think by having an advocate there that has no emotional connection to the property and is purely there to achieve a great result, again, do your due diligence as long as they know what they're doing.
Yeah, that's right.
We have a number of buyers agents that now bid at our auctions.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. You'd see that quite often.
Correct. And I think there's value there. Totally.
Absolutely.
Like they lead with authority.
Yes.
I know when I'm negotiating with them, when I pause, if we're not quite at reserve, they're going to be tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I definitely see value.
Awesome.
100%.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that I'd recommend. So auctions, how many would you do a week?
Well, I just do McGrath, right?
Yes.
So, and I like it purely based on the form that I've built such strong relationships with the agents, right? So when you call me or when Chris calls me or Damien or Jody or any of them call me, I know how they run their campaign.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah,
and I know it might sound weird, but they've all got a style that they like, and I know they like where they like me to start, what their process with their vendor is, where they want me involved. Like Stewie Thomas doesn't like any contact with his vendors.
Yep.
Someone like you loves to engage more, which is great.
Yep.
So I love that. And also it allows me to call probably, say you're calling 2 or 3 on a Saturday, right? You then have the ability to spend more time there.
I think it's really important. That's something that we often speak about, isn't it? Is that there's no doubt that makes such a difference. Like there's nothing worse than watching an auctioneer reading the feature and benefits list.
Correct.
When they've just literally, came to a screeching halt, rushing from another, auction, sweaty mess. Queensland humidity is not fun on a Saturday.
And the thing is, if you're calling 6 or 7, this is not a shot at anyone doing volume. This is purely on the fact of reality. You'll have to pull out of that driveway when you hit that 30-minute mark.
That's right.
You have to be on the way to the next one.
Yeah.
The Sunshine Coast's getting busier, so traffic,
That's
et cetera.
right.
Also, it allows us to walk in and go, hi, Bev and John, we spoke on the phone.
Exactly.
You know, you've been selling with Amy. So there's the rapport there with the client, which
Absolutely.
makes things easy. So
and you're always, I mean, you are, you know, an extension of the team. You know, I know we've got an auction coming up. You've already met the clients.
Totally.
And we've had really great conversations about how it's going to look, you know, what it's going to run. We're going to do a nighttime auction. You know, the home really lends itself to that. Friday afternoon, everyone's finished work. There's no competition with them having to race to 10 different open homes.
Correct.
Are they going to, you know, cross it off their list on a Saturday morning? But no, it's how long have you had that role with McGrath now?
Oh, it's been a long time, and the key to McGrath and where I see the value in McGrath as well is for a number of reasons. But the McGrath thing started based on the fact of the relationships with a lot of the principals. Like I knew Damien and Chris and Jody and the team, but we have a really expansive network. Right.
Absolutely.
So we're involved in a group chat from here down to New South Wales to Victoria with, say, 40 auctioneers.
Yeah,
right?
so all McGrath exclusive auctioneers.
Yep. And we often catch up in the event of a Zoom or a group chat, and you can really see what's happening in each market in the cash market.
Yeah,
right?
great.
And so that's a really good feel for me. If I'm seeing, you know, New South Wales come off or clearance rates drop in New South Wales, or I'll say to the guys, who's the buyer? Are you seeing owner-occupiers? Are you seeing this or what's it? So I'm gathering so much IP.
Yeah, you love to know what that appetite of the cash market is.
Totally. And
absolutely.
And it's genuinely, rule of thumb, a flow and effect of what Queensland's going to get.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And you would have seen that year on year.
Year on year. So I love that. Also, just great people.
Absolutely.
Right. The auctioneers, they're good, they're funny, there's banter.
Yeah. Of which you're number one.
Yeah.
No competition.
I can't
hey?
share the group, yeah. But it's a good group of guys, and
any girls?
Just love it. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, I think there's two.
Yeah, awesome.
Who do a great job. Got a very loyal following team, great ability.
Yeah, amazing.
And again, that's the world we're in, right?
Totally. Well, yeah, auction with Amy, pink gavel. That's
it.
Watch this space. We'll
Watch
see.
this space.
One
Here
day,
she comes.
hey, there are.
I'd love nothing more.
Big shoes to fill, but I'm sure there'll be some pink heels.
That's right.
So we obviously both so passionate and love real estate and could talk forever. If not real estate, what else would you do?
I would be boasting a Melbourne Demons jersey.
Hey.
Yeah, big AFL fan, and
me
more
too.
particularly the Melbourne Demons. I've been a supporter since I was born.
No way,
when I went
that's
to my
epic.
first game with my dad, and
Family team.
no,
Okay.
So my dad's a Swan, and South Melbourne.
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
So
love those dim sims at the market.
That's right. So we went to a game, my brother and I, and it was Richmond Tigers versus the Melbourne Demons. And my dad said, you can both pick a team. And we picked that game and we went there and my brother said, I want to beat the Tigers. And so I inherited Melbourne.
Yeah, wow. You poor bugger.
And the Demons, like the GFC, just were dragging on like a terrible innings. But it's like anything, you stick with them and we got a flag, right?
Hey,
so
well, good for you.
So what I would be doing is wearing the famous 33 Jeff Farmer, the Wizards jersey,
Amazing.
Kicking goals from the sideline.
Well, unfortunately for my family, I inherited a love for St Kilda.
Oh, just as tough. Well, you've now inherited the longest drought.
I
So
know.
Melbourne
Oh, I
handed that
know.
to St Kilda from
Correct.
premiership to premiership.
Correct. So never, what are we, 1964 or, long before me. Look, we nearly made it 2009,
Correct.
nearly made it in
Rematch.
2010. Yeah, rematch with Collingwood. Anyway, we both love our AFL.
Correct.
That is an awesome career that you would have chosen. Thankfully, you're successful in what you do now.
Thank goodness.
I would imagine that you wouldn't get a chance to enjoy as much good
No.
food and wine and everything.
No, but my dad's still based in Melbourne, so
Yes.
I always try to get down, at least see 2
Yeah.
or 3 games.
Nothing beats it.
No, and listen, this is the beauty of the industry on the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah.
And we touched on before, I'm friends with a lot of different principals and a lot of
Yes.
different people on the coast, and a lot have migrated from Victoria or down south at one stage of their life.
Yes.
So there's a very strong AFL following within the AFL industry, and me and a few other guys, we go down and watch a game every now and then. So.
It's fun, isn't it? What would you say? I love this question, and I probably know where you're going to go with it. But what do you think is the biggest myth or misconception of the real estate industry?
Yeah. So with me, it's quite, it obviously segues in. It's quite an easy one, and it's simply that people think it's easy, right?
Absolutely.
We talk about the duck on the pond and the feet peddling. It's a bloody hard industry.
Sure
and
is.
When I talk hard, again, there's a misconception of, I know that people listening would go, I'm a builder. I bloody work hard.
Yeah.
I swing a hammer for 12. You wouldn't last an hour in my shop. And this is what people have literally said to me.
Totally,
you wouldn't
of course.
last an hour.
Yeah,
in my
not
job.
saving lives.
I get that. But with our role, the emotional aspect, you may have not been paid. Like when I was working with Amber, I mean, there's 2 months there I hadn't been paid up. Brass razor.
Yeah, that's right. That's like zero in the bank.
Zilch, no.
Probably actually going backwards with marketing.
At a rapid rate, right? Like there was nothing on the horizon either, right?
Yeah.
And the emotional toll that has on you of going rent, fuel, phone, all the outgoings of my normal life, and I'm not selling anything, you start to doubt your ability.
Correct.
You start to go, should I even be in this industry? Can I cut it? And
other things look a lot easier, don't they?
Correct. And then the problem with that as well, you've got the general perception of people going, oh, mate, you're doing well with your real estate agent. And in the back of your head, you go, no, I'm not. Yeah. Like, I haven't been paid.
This lease on this car is up.
Yeah, your second-year apprentice builder's wage is more than I'm earning.
Yeah, that's right.
So
perception's everything, isn't it?
People think it's a lot easier. It is very time-consuming.
Yes.
And we never can underestimate when we sign a listing and sell a vendor's house, right? That is their number one thing that they're going through. So they are calling, they are texting. And at any one time, how many listings do you have at the moment?
8.
So you've got 8 vendors at any one time going, I wonder if anyone's inquired on my house. I wonder when the next inspection. What time's Amy here on Saturday? Should we get the lawns done? Call Amy.
Yeah.
Should we do this? Call Amy. Has that buyer inquired again? The one, the couple you said from Melbourne, are they still interested? Let's call Amy. So there's a lot going on.
And let's also just add to that now. And this is the age we're in now. And let's not just call, let's text, SMS, WhatsApp, and I'm always available, but, the
rule of thumb, right? If it's after 8 p.m, people we'll just text her.
Yeah. That's right.
Don't worry about her trying to sleep and forget that. So that's my biggest thing is a lot of people from an outside perception say it's easy. And that's why, like I said, from my view is I look at the operators that have worked through different cycles. I take my hat off to them.
Absolutely.
Like if you can have tenure in this industry, a full credit, and you deserve every success.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important. And, obviously we saw a lot of people entering the industry. I'd suggest, I do joke about it, but I do say my pugs, Freddie and Eddie, probably could have sold a house. Like I put them in front of a house. They're cute enough. They get the deal
orders,
done, stamping, the contract with their paws. But in all seriousness, you're exactly right. Taking orders, lines and streams of people wanting to purchase properties. But we are seeing an exodus in the industry.
Oh, and we will. We will. We'll see a lot of people go out of the industry as we did the last time this happened.
Yeah.
Right? When things started to get tough and people couldn't manage cash flow.
It's a huge factor, isn't it?
Because, let's talk about it. When you list a property, so we go in and sign the form. We then organise photos, we then organise styling, we get it live, we do texts. Say we sell it in 30 days, 3 weeks. We then say 30 to 60 days settlement.
Yep, 90 days down the track.
So I don't think people realise there's no pay till then.
Correct.
Right? So there's been...
And there's probably sometimes outgoings as well.
The outgoings don't stop.
Yeah.
ANZ don't go, no, you're an agent, it's all good. You just can let me know when you're good to go.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of emotions. And you get to day 70 and the deal falls over.
Yeah, that's
we
right.
We spoke about a deal falling over today.
Yeah, that's right.
You're back to square one.
That's right.
So that's a tough pill to swallow. And, it's funny, you meet people who go, I'm thinking of getting into real estate because I've worked out that if I sell $1 million house, my commission's going to be 20 grand. That's for a whole nother day.
I love it. What would you say to someone that's wanting to join the industry? Because I think, that's a really great, that's a question we get asked, every day. Absolutely. What would be your advice?
First question I ask people is why?
Cool. Awesome.
Right. I want to know from them why. Like a lot of people ring me wanting to get in off the plan, right?
Yeah,
that's fundamentally what I do. And I say, why? Like, what do you? Because I'll always be straight and I'll always be honest.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to give people a misconception that what they're about to get into is going to be an overnight success. Because
Absolutely.
people will say to me, oh, I can't believe you've got $200 million project in Pelican Waters and you're the only one selling it. It's like, yeah, but do you know how I got that?
Yes.
That's years of track record of grinding and work, but you don't say it. But
yeah, of course.
But again, so I ask why, and then if the reasons align with the industry, I say, well, so let's say, for example, yours. I think my genuine advice is to start how you started, or I started.
Absolutely.
If you think you're too big to sit at the front desk with no experience, well, you want to jump straight in the deep end. Prepare that you're probably a 75% chance of failing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much, isn't it? I always think of those little turtles, little cuties. Like how many of them make it out to sea?
And and you don't want to be a statistic, right?
Of course.
You'll be tarnished by it. But you were able to have the ability of sitting there, listening to all the sales guys on the phone, all the PM girls, watching two principals go through general business, learn and learn and learn and learn. And then when you were at that stage where you go, hey, I've built a network, I've built a team, I've built relationships, I'm ready to take that step. And then people go, geez, Amy, you're so lucky. It's all just worked for you. Like, how did, you just went into sales and your phone started ringing.
Yeah.
But that's what I always tell people. If you're prepared to get into sales, be patient.
Correct.
And do it right.
And I think also too, probably, the biggest thing I would add to that, and yeah, absolutely, my role started as operations and marketing manager, but that, like you said, that was on the front counter. That was, that was dealing with some bloody tough, tough conversations from day one, and did that for 4 years. But I'd also say as well, don't give up.
Correct.
So many people give up on this, that last step, don't they? Or they just can't see the greatness that they've put in place and what's ahead.
And you can be so close. And I was talking to a young agent the other day, and he rang me, and he's been in it for 4 or 5 months, and he had 2 sales, and they both fell over, right? And he said, it's all too hard. And I said, mate, you are so close.
Yeah.
You are down the aisle. You're literally about to touch the priest is there. She's there. You just hang in there, right? And I said, those 2 sales that fell over are going to be the best thing that's happened to your career.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you now know it's tough to the end.
Correct. That's right. Yeah. And until the money's in the bank.
And you know what? We talk about this industry being hard, but it also comes with a heap of upside.
Absolutely. I think that's really...
Let's not just dull down on how hard this is. And
we love it. We wouldn't do it if we didn't love it,
There's
right?
definitely times you and I could probably talk about a million times where, let's talk footy, you get the free kick, right? You put the sign out the front, someone rings it and says, what do they want? 700, we'll give them 7.
Yep.
What?
Yeah.
And
it's your 1.5 auction guy, isn't it?
You've got to have those wins, and they do come.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. But again, like you say, with hard work.
With hard work.
You've got to get the listing.
And we wouldn't be doing this if it was always hard.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
There are
Fair
times,
call.
there are perks. It's exceptionally rewarding in the sense of watching people and watching others grow and
helping them in the toughest time.
100%.
That again, for us, it wasn't the salt sticker going up or the cracking the champagne and having it with those clients. It was just knowing genuinely that this was the right decision for their family.
Correct.
And that they had an onward plan.
Absolutely. So no, it's a great industry to be in, and you just got to be patient. But again, back to what I said, misconception. It's just not easy.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's put real estate aside and property. There is life outside.
There is.
I would love to know if you could be anywhere or go on holidays anywhere in the world. Where's your favourite place to go?
Yeah, I'm a big Queenstown fan.
Okay.
Yep.
In winter?
Anytime.
Okay.
That's the best thing about Queenstown, right?
Okay. Never been.
Oh, you're kidding.
No.
You haven't lived.
My parents live in Tassie, so it's almost, maybe not the same.
It is just a place that continues to deliver.
Yeah.
It's got everything from great food to the ability to go bike riding, hiking, skiing.
Yes.
But in the summers, the water's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just got everything.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
the people are beautiful.
Would you live there?
I would.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for someone with kids or young kids, you'll get this. It's a 2.5 hour, 3 hour flight. Right?
Yeah,
So
gotcha. Yeah.
the ability to get the kids through customs, which is enough to just stress you out, right? To then get on the plane and get there, and then everything's walking distance, 15 minutes from the airport to your to where you're staying.
Yeah, beautiful.
And it's beautiful scenery, wines, foods, everything's great.
Picturesque.
And it's just a beautiful, beautiful place. So I'm a big fan of
Awesome.
of Queenstown all year round.
With Katie and the girls?
With Katie and the girls, yes.
Perfect. Speaking of the girls,
Yes.
I want to know, what was the best day of your life?
Oh, exactly. Very easy is my two daughters. So very lucky to have Lulu, who's 3,
Yes.
and Eve, that's 7. Again, so fortunate, beautiful girls.
Yeah.
Great, and feature to our lives. They add so much value in every way, shape, and form. Watching them evolve and grow, and they're both at grammar.
I was just going to say, following in your footsteps.
Oh, listen, I hope they far exceed my footsteps, but.
What do they love in life?
I was actually worried about getting them into grammar with my track record, to be frank. I'm just going to fudge the application form. But listen, they're just so patient, right? This industry is taxing.
Yeah, it
right?
is.
In relation to time.
Of course.
Right? So we work Saturdays, we work long hours. Again, a lot of people can't see us till they get home from work.
Dad's on the phone.
Dad's on the phone, right?
Yeah.
And in the car
is
a killer, right?
Yeah, of course.
We're always getting phone. But just watching my girls go, no, subconsciously when the phone rings, they go quiet, we take the call.
Yeah.
And that's not me being a hard ass dad.
No, I get it.
Absolutely. They just get it, right?
Business is business, yeah.
I'm so grateful that they do get it. I love spending time with them. My wife Katie obviously does a tremendous job with those two because they are busy.
Super mum. She is very organised.
Down to
loves
the T.
Loves her routine.
Yep.
I don't know a super mum that isn't. What do the girls love?
Oh, listen, they love a bit of everything. But the good thing about the girls is they could be happy just going and watching a movie.
Yeah, beautiful.
As in at home.
Yeah.
On Friday afternoons, we have movie night.
Beautiful.
There's a bit of a reward after the end of school.
Yeah, awesome.
The girls can pick a movie.
Great.
And they know they're getting lollies and popcorn.
Beautiful.
So that's a highlight.
That's so good. So important, isn't it? Like you can't do what we do without that.
Totally.
You just need that.
If you're not taking a break and energising and really getting deep on what's important, your real estate's always going to be there.
Totally. And I think you're really the same as me. We're both high energy people.
Totally.
When we're on, and when we're on, we're on. So what does off time look like for you? How do you unwind and self-care?
So, good question. So that'll actually happen tonight at 6:30 when Melbourne play Adelaide.
Okay.
So
lucky it's not St Kilda.
No. Listen, I can really switch off when it comes to family time, but I just enjoy putting a game of football on.
Yeah, awesome.
It's one of those things for me that I'll lay in bed thinking about everything that we've got to do, right? And people got to call and etc. When I just sit there and watch a game of footy,
that's it.
It's just I think of nothing. So it's bliss. But also with the girls, right? Like I love nothing more than having them in the car talking. And the older the girls get, I guess from a male's perspective, a lot of people love the baby stage. I'm loving this age.
So good. Magic.
The general conversation just makes me laugh of what they've learned. So unwinding, we love the beach.
Yeah. Look, we're in
correct
nature in abundance.
We love everything about that. So, but just generally spending time.
Yeah.
Right.
Most precious thing we've got, and it's in those moments. That's what matters ultimately.
And I don't work Sundays, period. So it's all family time Sunday.
Amazing.
And I actually learned that from Grant Smith.
Yeah,
so I
amazing.
believe he's done a chat with you, and Grant obviously your podcast will definitely not be as good as mine if you listen to it. But he's just a great guy. But also phenomenal. I remember I was doing an appointment one day and I rung him, and he said to me, "You need to be so much smarter with your time." I said, "Why?" He goes, "The buyer will be there tomorrow." And he said, "I cannot." He goes, "Mate, would your GP see you on Sunday?" I said, "No." He said, "So why are you running around the countryside on a Sunday?" Switch off, spend it with your family and schedule it for Monday. And I thought to myself, he's so right. It'll all be there tomorrow.
Words of wisdom, and gosh, how many amazing people we can learn from. Favourite food and drink? One of my favourite questions.
Listen, I'm a pretty simple guy. I can't walk past the sushi. I'm a sushi guy.
I was really surprised with that. Favourite sushi on the coast?
If you wander up right now to the sushi shop next to IGA, I'm on first name basis.
That's your jam?
Listen, I can walk in fresh rolled. So
what do you like?
Again, I like to mix it up. I could either go teriyaki chicken, I can go fresh salmon, I can go tuna. It just depends what mood.
You'll take it all. Actually, we have met, haven't we, over banh mi as well?
I'm a mad banh mi
we like
man,
Vietnamese banh mi. And drink?
And my wife always says to me, "I cannot believe you cannot get sick of it.
Yeah.
You get the same bloody thing.
And cold, like sushi. I'm like, I'm just
no.
sushi in summer only for me.
You just wheel in sushi anytime. Drink-wise, again, I'm a long black.
Long black.
Again, I can order a long black at 40-degree heat. Or I can have it in the cold. I'm a
cold coffee all the way.
You are cold,
yeah. But we do like a yuzu spritz from White Picket Fence.
We do.
We've had one today.
I've been handsomely rewarded with one today.
And to end our chat, which, like I said, Marcus, God, we could talk for hours. I love that about this podcast is just in conversation. What's your favourite quote or motto that you live by?
Favourite quote and motto, listen, it's one that sounds easier than it is. And again, for those that are listening, to implement this, start basic, right? It's how I did it. Have I at all succeeded in this? No, right? I try and then try, right? And that's a whole nother segue on this thing is that, as an agent, the biggest thing is showing vulnerability. Right?
Absolutely.
Like we have to always presume and look like we've got everything under control.
Correct.
There's a whole nother.
Would you say tears into the pillow?
Tears into the pillow. I tell you what. And there's been a lot of times I've driven home radio off just thinking.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, quote is just do what you say you're going to do.
Love
right?
it.
So if you can get up in the morning and say, for example, I say to you, I had a really good coffee this morning, and you say where, and I say I'll text you the address, right? 9 times out of 10, most people will just forget about it. And you will text them saying, hey, could you text me where you went to coffee?
Yes.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Right? So if you just shoot and go, hey, Amy, 22 Mitchelton Street, Caloundra, it's called White Picket Fence. Bang, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Then you implement that same thing on every capacity of your life.
Personally,
right?
professionally.
You'll be surprised at how well people respond to it.
Absolutely. Because that's the hardest thing, isn't it? A lot of people just don't follow through with what they say they're going to do.
And bingo.
That's it.
And then there becomes the perception that if you weren't able to do that, you're not going to be able to do that. And that could be anything from, executing a contract at $10 million.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
So I say start basic, but implement it in every, like when you're going to turn the laptop off and go, I did say that I was going to email that lady the CMA on the rentals. But you know what? If you can't do it, just shoot them a message.
Correct.
Hey, wasn't able to get to that CMA at 6 o'clock. I have to shoot. I'll have it to you first thing tomorrow morning. No one's going to buck up at that.
Absolutely. That's right. Yeah.
But the no communication.
Yeah, that's right.
They will. So I just find if you can, in the back of your mind, if you can end your day and go, did I do everything else I said I was going to do?
Yep.
Happy days.
Head on the pillow, no tears.
No tears.
Love it. Mr. Marcus Muir, what an absolute honour to have you here. You are an absolute inspiration. There is no shadow of a doubt why you are the number one auctioneer with what you do. But in my eyes, just an absolute superhuman as a person and also as a professional.
Absolute pleasure. Exciting times, and again, watching you grow.
Thank you.
You know, where you've come from where you've started to now makes the future look very, very exciting. So I think the way you're going, I'll be having to line up to get on this podcast another 3 or 4 years.
Hey, mate, I'll have you back anytime.
No, it's been a pleasure, and I hope you as the listeners have enjoyed, and follow Amy's journey because you're in for a ride.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Beyond the Signboard. We trust you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed making it for you. If there are any topics you want covered in the future, make sure you reach out and let us know. Also, feedback and suggestions are appreciated, almost as much as likes, shares and downloads.